Hi, my name is Michael with Pack Leader USA. Thank you for purchasing our FL-14 filling machine. Today we're going to be talking about the leveling pads, the conveyor, the 4 product sensors, the gates, the 4 nozzles, also the 4 pistons, the air regulator, the HMI screen, and also the control box. To ensure a longer lifespan for your filling machine, it's required to have a dedicated 220 volts to your machine, and then also 70 psi or 5 bar of air dedicated to your machine also. To add the filler onto the conveyor, one thing you need to know is that this aluminum bracket will already be attached to the conveyor along with the stainless steel and aluminum bracket here also. This aluminum bracket down here is going to need to be aligned up with these 3 stainless steel rods, and it has a grooved opening for each stainless steel rod to fit into place. Once you have them aligned, go ahead and push the filler onto the conveyor. And now this aluminum bracket is flush with each stainless steel rod. Then you could add the aluminum bracket that locks the filler onto the conveyor. All you need to do is just tighten the hand screws all the way to lock the filler into place. Your machine is attached to the conveyor now, so now we could go ahead and adjust the leveling pads to ensure your machine will be even more stable. To adjust the leveling pads, all you'll need to do is just turn the leveling pad till it's touching the ground. To lock them in place, you could raise this nut that's right here on the leveling pad and turn it all the way up till it ends up touching the top. Now that the leveling pad is touching the ground, it will just help support the machine while it's running. To adjust the in-feed turntable, it's recommended to have 2 people to raise the in-feed turntable. After adjusting the height, you'll want to make sure that the in-feed turntable and the conveyor are the same exact height. Once they are the same exact height, go ahead and you can attach this bracket and lock it down into place. This will ensure that your in-feed turntable and conveyor are all connected together in the same exact height. Once you've connected your in-feed turntable and conveyor, you'll have a power cable on the in-feed turntable, and you'll be able to run that male cable into the female plug on the filling machine. You have your 4 product sensors that are located right here. To adjust your 4 product sensors, you could actually tilt them from side to side, or you could actually adjust the depth of the product sensor by loosening the handle and bringing it in and out. You can also, after that, you could adjust the actual height of the product sensor by loosening the handle in the back, raising it up and down. Once you feel like you have the sensors relatively the same, you could go ahead and slide your product in front of the product sensors and adjust your sensors. We can see that both of the red light and green light are on all 4 sensors. These 2 lights have to be on in order to run your machine. This represents that the sensors are seeing the product, but if I move this product away from the sensor, you can see that it's only 1 green light on now. Then I move it back, and there's a red and a green light on. If you're not seeing both red and green light on top of the product sensors, you need to adjust the depth of the sensitivity on the back of the sensors. That's where you'll need a small straight slot screwdriver to adjust the depth. On your machine, you have an in-feed and out-feed gate. Both in-feed and out-feed gates are tagged with stickers that give you indications of where the air hoses need to be connected at. If you feel like your in-feed gates or out-feed gates are moving slowly, you can adjust the air lines by opening these valves or closing the valves to decrease the airflow. To set up your outfeed gate, you'll want to go ahead and you could loosen this hand knob and you can move it back and forth And you want to set up the product in front of the sensors and then bring this outfeed gate in to where it's touching the last bottle, and then tighten the handle. Next, you want to adjust and set up the infeed gate. You'll do it the same way by moving it in and out, but you want it to where the oncoming product isn't pressing against the 4 bottles that will be underneath the nozzles. Now we're ready to go ahead and adjust the 4 nozzles of the filler. As you can see, these 4 nozzles, they're not perfectly above the product, so we want to go ahead and center these and align them directly right above the opening of each bottle. So we're just going to go ahead and take a look and see where it's at. Center it up, and then we could just slightly tighten the thumb screws a little bit, and then we could manually lower the nozzles down. I'll just move this nozzle, center it up a little bit more. Otherwise, the rest look pretty good. Make sure all 4 of the nozzles are tight, and then you just take it back up. Now looking at the pistons and the stainless steel cylinders, we have pistons 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're going to want to set up your product directly behind the filler and drop the hoses into your product or attach it to your product directly. For demonstration purposes, we're using this 5-gallon bucket of water to run through our filler. We do offer a manifold that does make the transition from the product into the filler a smoother transition. We also have the top hoses that come from the cylinders that run directly to the nozzles and then into your product. To set up your guardrails, you're first going to want to place products, space them out evenly along the conveyor, and then you can go ahead and see what kind of space you have from your bottle in between each side of the guardrail. You're going to want to use one side, generally the back or longer guardrail, as your base guardrail. And that base guardrail is going to stay in place at all times for this size of product. It's normal to have a larger opening in the beginning of the guardrails and then for it to get tighter when it gets to the stainless steel guardrail. As I've loosened these thumb screws, I'll slowly push the guardrails in. Now that there's a resistance, these bottles don't freely move. I need to slowly back the guardrail out just a little bit. And then I could go ahead and tighten the thumb screws and see how much space that I have. Now I could take my product and slide it underneath and see if I'm aligned with the nozzles. You could look down the side of the conveyor, or else you could look straight down from the filler to see if they are aligned. And now your products are perfectly aligned underneath the nozzles and also in the center of the conveyor. Now that we've turned on the HMI screen, we could go ahead and push the menu button right here. Now we are at the main menu. We could first start off at the manual mode. This will actually allow you to manually control the main components of the filler, whether it's have the nozzles go up or down, the infeed gate to go forward or the infeed gate to go back, and also the outfeed gate to go forward or the outfeed gate to go back. You could also manually turn the conveyor on or off, or have the turntable turn on or off individually. Going back to the main menu, and we could look at the memory mode. You're actually able to select individual memory files. You have all the way up to 30 different recipes that you could save on. And as you can see where it says name, you could actually give each memory a specific name or title. So let's say if I wanted to go to memory 1, I could select memory 1 And then I could just go ahead and recall what was ever saved on memory 1. So all I have to do is just push recall and then yes. And now that it's loading, it's going to be loading the previous settings that were on there. But if I wanted to go back to the previous file that I was on prior, I could go ahead and press number 2, and number 2 says 24 BPM, which is 24 bottles per minute. And I could just go ahead and recall this file. And so now my settings have changed back to this file. Now to go over setting mode, just click setting mode, and we have 6 different pages you could choose from on just setting mode. But if we click fill setting, we could actually put in exactly the amount of milliliters that we want to add in for each piston. At this point, it says filling 1 volume setting, and currently it says 60 cc's or 60 milliliters. This is going to dispense 60 milliliters into our blue glass bottles that we have, and then filling 1 refill is going to stay at 0. Filling 2 volume setting is going to be at 60. Filling 2 refill is at 0. And then if we push next page, we're going to continue on with the same pattern. Now, if you ever need to use the refill section, that is just going to be to add an extra milliliter or 2 if you need to for a specific nozzle. So anytime you see your product that looks a little low on one of the nozzles, you could go ahead and add a couple milliliters for that one nozzle, and it'll add just a little bit more. But for this current setup, we will be running this at 0, and each nozzle will be running exactly 60 milliliters. The second portion we have for the setting mode is the filling manual setting page. We're able to look at this, and this is to break down each individual piston and control each individual piston individually. So we have piston 1, 2, 3, and 4. This entire column right here has filling 1 jog up, filling 2 jog up, filling 3 and 4 jog up. So that allows you to actually dispense the fluid out of the cylinders by pushing the piston up. Jog down is going to allow you to pull the piston down for the cylinders to fill back up with fluid. Filling 1 cycle, 2, 3, and 4 cycle will allow you to run 1 full cycle of the settings that you currently have the machine set at. Filling 1 CIP, 2, 3, and 4 CIP, which CIP stands for clean in place. This is going to be the button you will use to cycle your air out, so in order for you to prime your machine to get it ready before you start doing a production run. To stop the CIP, you have the filling CIP stop button right next to it. So when you are done, once you press the filling CIP button, it will continuously run until you press filling CIP stop. The piston filling times represents how many times you can actually fill the container. With this filler being 150 milliliter maximum fill level, you could actually put a 200 milliliter product in here and run 2 100 milliliter cycles through it. So piston filling times, you could press 2, and then you could change your fill levels to 100 milliliters to match a 200 milliliter container. And the piston refill delay is going to be after it fills 1 cycle, it will have a 1 second pause, and then the second cycle, which is currently at 2 times, so the second cycle will be filling after that 1 second pause. We'll click parameter setting, and now we can control the individual speeds of our fill level. Currently, this says piston up 1 speed is 1100 RPMs. Filling speed change percent is at 70%. Piston up 2 speed is at 700 RPMs. Piston down speed is 2500 RPMs. And filling piston torque is 100%. Now, filling up 1 speed represents the first 70% of the fluid going into the product is filled at 1100 RPMs. The remaining 30% is filled at 700 RPMs. This is to be used for products that might be bubbly, so that way there's no overflow of any bubbles and you don't lose any of your product. Piston down speed is set at 2500 RPMs, which is going to be the speed on how fast the pistons go back down to its home position. This ranges from 50 RPMs to 3000 RPMs. So if this was set at 50 RPMs, the pistons would go back down in its home position at a very, very slow rate. But at 3000 RPMs, they shoot back down into its home position at the fastest rate possible. Filling piston torque is going to be the amount of pulling torque power that the filling machine is going to use in order to pull the product from your container. Next page, we have the conveyor speed and also the turntable speed or the turntable frequency. The conveyor speed is set at 6 meters a minute. So we could click on the 6 and we have a range from 1 meter to 30 meters a minute. The average speed is generally going to be from 6 meters a minute to about 12 meters a minute for normal customers. The turntable frequency is 25 hertz. This starts off at 1 hertz and going all the way up to 60 hertz. Now backing out of this page, we'll go back into the setting page. Now we can look at the time setting. This is where you can control the individual gates on how fast they open and close. In-feed gate open delay is currently at 2 seconds. Out-feed gate close delay is set at 1.7 seconds. Bottle jam sensor is at 8 seconds, and bottle jam release delay is at 0.5 seconds. So the in-feed gate, with it being at 2 seconds, after the products have left, that gate will open up. With the out-feed gate close delay is after it's done filling, then the nozzles go back up, the bottles will pass through, and last bottle will pass the out-feed gate in 1.7 seconds. The bottle jam sensor delay is when a product is sitting in front of that bottle jam sensor for 8 seconds or longer, the machine itself will stop. And the bottle jam release delay is once that jam is released, in a half a second, the alarm will stop beeping and the machine will continue to run again. Now we could go ahead and press the last page. And then we could look at the PLC monitor. This allows you to go through the PLC screen and see each individual component that is on currently right now. And you could also access this page when you were running your production run. Going back to the main menu, now we could take a look at auto mode. Auto mode is going to be your main home page. Again, we have the PLC monitor just as a quick tab right here. We could access this page again, and you could see all this when you're running. Filling setting tab up here is just going to be a quick tab for the filling 1 refill, 2, 3, and 4 refill sections. Again, this is only to add just a couple millimeters into individual nozzles. We have your stop button, your home, conveyor on and off, filling on and off, and production pause. Production pause is going to fill the product and hold it, and it gives you a little bit of time to go ahead and maybe clear out a jam, or gives you just a little bit more space to work with. The filling speed is what we have for on the first 70%. If you remember on the parameter setting page, we have the filling speed, which is at 1100 RPMs. Again, that goes all the way up to 3000 RPMs. Pre-count is set to 0. So if you wanted to run 100 bottles, you could run 100 bottles and the machine itself will stop. Counter clear is currently set and read 1,188 containers. And then if you want to clear it out, all you have to do is just press and hold, and then that will go back to 0. Capacity per minute is going to be after 2 full cycles of the filling, it's going to give you a rough estimate of how many bottles per minute you will have. In order to run the machine, you will first have to press home. This ensures all the components go back to its home section. The nozzles, the gates, the conveyor, the pistons, they all return back to the home position. Now you are able to push conveyor on, and then you're able to push filling and start your production. What you're going to be doing now is, since you've just received your machine, you have your product attached to the filler and your manifold connected in if you have a manifold. And you're going to be running the filler through the CIP function, which is this clean in place function. You're going to remove one of the nozzles or all 4 nozzles, but for demonstration purposes, we'll go ahead and use nozzle 4. Now that alarm is the sensor that is located right behind this L-shaped stainless steel plate. This sensor recognizes when the nozzles accidentally hit the bottles, and that's if the nozzles are not aligned with the bottle. That way it prevents any kind of spillage to happen. Now, to actually run the machine as a CIP, all you're going to do is we have piston 4 or nozzle 4. We're going to press filling 4 CIP. And now it is currently cycling the air out of the filler. This will probably take anywhere from 3 cycles to maybe 8 cycles to go ahead to remove the air. As you can see, it didn't have just water in that previous cycle, so we're going to let it run a few cycles. So now that we're getting a steady stream of water, or you're getting product steadily coming out of the filler, you could go ahead and press filling CIP stop. And that has manually pulled the pistons back into the home position, and it's ready to run as a production run. If you ever need to access the control box of the FL-14 filling machine, it's actually directly located on the side of the machine below the HMI screen. Your air regulator on your FL-14 filling machine, it is currently set up at 0.7 bar, which is actually too high. This needs to be set up at 0.5, which is 0.5 represents 5 bar or 70 psi. You're just going to pull the blue top and then just go ahead and bring it back down to where it's just right above 0.5. So now we're above 0.5. We're at 0.510, roughly around there, and that's equivalent to 70 or 75 psi. To learn more about this equipment, please visit us at packleaderusa.com.